What if life isn't just something that happens to us, but a game we can actually learn to play? You know, a challenging one for sure, but one that comes with a strategy guide written centuries ago by some of the sharpest minds in history. Okay, let's dive into this philosopher's guide to navigating and maybe even winning at the game of life. So, rule number one of this game, you have to acknowledge the reality of the playing field. The source material is super clear on this. Life is not a walk in the park. It's a constant struggle, a battle that demands our resilience and a real willingness to fight for every bit of progress, every single day.
All right, so let's start with that foundational idea. If life is a battle, what are the rules of engagement? How do we even begin to fight it?
Well, the source material puts it pretty bluntly. It says the world is like a game played with a loaded dice. The odds can often feel totally stacked against us. And what that means is our greatest assets aren't going to be external advantages. No, it's our internal fortitude, the armor of our spirit, the weapons of our will, and having the right mindset to face it all. This right here, this should be our motto. It's a powerful Latin phrase from the text, and it basically means, don't you dare give in to adversity. Instead, you meet it with even greater courage. It's a command to be proactive, not reactive, when life throws its challenges at you.
Now, to fight any battle effectively, you first have to confront the enemy within. So let's take a closer look and dissect the psychology of our own fear.
Okay, so the text makes a really crucial distinction here. Fear in itself isn't a bad thing. A little bit of it is actually necessary for survival. It keeps us from being totally reckless. But when that fear gets exaggerated, when it blows things way out of proportion, that's when it turns into cowardice. And that's the thing that paralyzes us. The text even gives this destructive fear a name: panic terror. Now, this isn't the fear you feel when a car swerves towards you. This is that vague, creepy dread that doesn't seem to have a clear cause. It's that free-floating anxiety, what we might call generalized anxiety today, that's born out of our deep-seated instinct for self-preservation. And you know, this idea has deep roots. The philosopher Francis Bacon actually connected this type of terror to the Greek god Pan, who is the personification of the wild, overwhelming power of nature. It's a fear as old as humanity itself. That fear of the vast, the unknown, and the uncontrollable. And this just perfectly illustrates the irrational trap of panic. It doesn't operate on evidence, it operates on presumption. It's this vicious cycle where the feeling of fear becomes its own justification. You're afraid simply because you feel afraid. The goal then has to be to break that loop. So we've looked at the internal battle. Now what about the external stuff? How does this philosophy guide us when it comes to handling misfortune and building up our resilience? I mean, think about it for a second. Why does an unexpected setback hit us so much harder than one we kind of saw coming? The source material actually has a pretty fascinating psychological explanation for this. It's because when we're caught off guard, our mind just snaps into that state of terror we were just talking about. And because we haven't had time to process it, the disaster feels infinite. Its weight seems so much greater than it actually is, because uncertainty and darkness, they always magnify how we perceive danger. So how do we prepare? Well, the text lays out a clear 4-step strategy. First, mentally rehearse potential misfortunes. Don't dwell on them, but consider them. Second, assess what their real impact would be. Third, know who or what your sources of aid are. Where would you turn for help? And finally, practice accepting what is necessary. This isn't about being a pessimist, it's about being proactively resilient. Next up, let's talk about the big guns, the great external forces that govern this game: fate and luck, and how we're supposed to navigate these forces that are way beyond our control. The text identifies 3 great powers that shape our world: sagacity, which is basically wisdom, strength, and luck. And here's the kicker. The author argues that luck is the most powerful of them all. More than your intelligence, more than your physical strength, luck is king. To explain this, the text uses this beautiful metaphor. Life is a voyage at sea. Our own choices, our prudence, our conduct, that's the rudder. We can steer with it. But fate and luck, that's the wind. A good wind will get you to your destination with no steering at all, while a hurricane can wreck you, no matter how hard you're working that rudder. This old Spanish proverb, quoted in the text, really hammers the point home. Give your son luck and throw him into the sea. I mean, what a provocative way of saying that good fortune is the ultimate, most essential advantage you can have in life. But hold on, just as we start to feel totally powerless, the text brings us right back to reality with a huge counterpoint. Very often, what we blame on fate is actually just the direct result of our own stupid and foolish conduct. We are not just passive victims of the wind.
So, if fate is sometimes just a cover for our own bad choices, and other times it's a genuine force like luck, how are we supposed to navigate that? How do we balance what we can't control with what we can? Well, this brings us to the final and maybe the most important metaphor for mastering this whole game of life.
The writer Terence said life is like a game of dice. You don't control the number you roll, right? But a skilled player can take a pretty undesirable roll and still find a way to use it to their advantage. The outcome isn't the point, it's how you use the outcome that matters. The author refines this idea even further. An even better analogy might be a game of chess. Our opponent is fate, and it's making unpredictable moves all the time. We can't just stick to some rigid plan. We are forced to constantly adapt our strategy in response to the caprice of fate. And that right there, that brings us to the core lesson of this entire explainer. True power in the game of life isn't about controlling the dice roll or changing the cards that fate deals you. It's about becoming a master at playing the hand you have, whatever it may be. Look, this ancient wisdom, it isn't just theory. It's a call to action. It hands the strategy right back to you. So with this guide in mind, the game is underway. The board is set. What's your next move going to be?